Hi, good afternoon, everyone. What we're going to do is, in today's session, we're going to have three parts to the session. The first one is going to be a very small presentation. All right, thank you. This is going to be a very, very small presentation. This is going to be a very, very small presentation about something called Barcelona Principles. How many of you have heard about Barcelona Principles? Not many. Surprising. All right. I'm not going to tell you what Barcelona Principles are, but I'll introduce them briefly. But more importantly, I want to tell you that we have recently launched Barcelona Principles version 4. So we'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk to three experts who are on the stage with me. We're going to ask them questions and request them to share some examples of measurement. And third, we're going to take questions from you. Karan has been very kind. Karan is here. Thank you for inviting us. He's been very kind, and he promised me an extra drink if I get 5 questions for this session. So please help me with that. All right. So it was in 2010 when an organization called Association for Measurement and Evaluation of Communication. This is an association wherein public relations firms, measurement companies, research companies, we all get together and talk about taking the profession forward. And we got together in 2010 in Barcelona, and we came up with these 7 principles. These are called Barcelona Principles. And what we did was, just like any other profession, chartered accountants, consultants, we set a bar that at least anybody who's in the business of communication measurement should follow these 7 principles. And it was in 2010. So all the people in the room who did not know what Barcelona Principles are, these were launched in 2010 and are being used widely across the world. After that, in 2015, we had the second version. In 20, we had the third. And 2025, in Vienna, AMIC launched the 4th version of Barcelona Principles. And here are the principles on the screen for you right inside. I don't want you to read them for now. You can go back and read these principles. But what I want to tell you is that there is a lot of debate and research that has gone into creating these principles. A lot of our clients ask us, how do we make sure that our measurement programs are successful? And we tell them, first go back and check, is your measurement campaign compliant to the Barcelona Principles or not? And there is a way to do that. In the version 4, which was launched 2 weeks back in Vienna, there are 3 major changes that we have done. And version 4 is actually an evolution, not a revolution. So we've not drastically changed the principles, but we've made some minor changes. And why? Because there are so many changes happening in the environment. So what we wanted to do was, with all these changes in the environment, we wanted to bring some clarity and practicality to the principles. We wanted them to be more aligned with a lot of other frameworks that we have. So AMIC has a lot of frameworks as well, like integrated evaluation framework. And we wanted to bring some alignment with those. And third, we wanted to modernize the relevance, given that now we started using AI. We are working with large amounts of data. So we've made these 3 changes. So here's an example of what we've done to bring in more clarity and practicality. We've added sections which tell you what is to be done if you want to be compliant with this principle. So we've given you steps and examples. We've also done and given you a list of what not to do so that you are compliant. We've aligned them to with the existing frameworks. So this is, I don't know how many of you know what integrated evaluation framework is, but the colors and some of the steps here are same as what you would see in the IEF. So in the principles, we've given it a structure wherein now it is more aligned. And things like data governance, ethics, audience fragmentation, all these elements have now been brought into the framework. So now the principles, version 4, I encourage all of you to go back and read about those. And if you want to learn about these principles, there's a very interesting and informative document available on this website, amicorg.com. You can go and download that. Now, part. We're going to talk to the experts, and we have an interesting set of experts here. Neeraj is on the business side. So he is the CEO on the business side. And what is interesting is that before this session, when we were preparing for this session, I sent across a questionnaire to 3 of them, asking them, can you take this questionnaire? It'll tell you whether you're compliant to Barcelona principles or not for your measurement program. So Deepa and Abhi are experts in public relations. So they quickly got down to working on that questionnaire. And Neeraj called his team. He said, my PR team, please come over. We'll talk about this. All right. So this is the questionnaire that I'd sent across to the 3 of them. And I'll tell you a story. So in February earlier this year, I got a chance to address 25 corporate communicators in a room. And I asked them to take this questionnaire. There are 7 principles. If you're compliant to all, you get a score of 7. Surprisingly, 70% of the communicators only got a score of 3 or less. And as I said, we introduced these principles in 2010, and everybody has been complaining that these principles are so basic. If they are so basic, why are you not compliant? Why is your PR campaign not compliant to these principles? So these experts also took that questionnaire. And to start the discussion, I'm going to ask a question, which is, when you were taking this questionnaire, did you find principles when you felt, oh, this is a principle that we really adhere to. We've done this very, very well.
So all of you can hear me, right? Yeah, I think you can. So, he stated that I am from business side, and we had not seen these principles before he introduced it to us. And then we spent time on understanding it, and we found that the first one, which is, writing your objectives and going on and doing all those kinds of things, is something that we anyway do. We are from a training organization where we train people, so we create material and so on. So that part was being done by us anyway. And as we moved forward, there was another one which was coming out to be something that we normally do, but we weren't aware of it. So we started looking at saying, okay, this is a set of principles that we will now apply to our work here on. Yeah.
So, he picked on the first principle, which actually talks about it's very important that before you start any campaign, you need to articulate the objectives of the campaign in a smart way. And it also states you need to share these principles with the entire team that is working with you. So I was telling them that earlier that there are times when we walk into a room talking to a new prospect team, and we give them small pieces of paper and ask all the team members to write down the objective of the current campaign that they're working on. And after that, we say, now exchange the slips with each other and raise your hand if you got the same objective that you had written in response to my question. And more than 70% of the time, we find that people have written different objectives. So my question, what did you do in your role as a communicator to make sure that all the objectives that we've articulated are shared with all the team members that you have in the team?
So can you hear me, guys? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to answer this question a little differently. I will reflect back on my time with Hindustan Unilever. Lever, and if anybody has worked with any of the businesses of Lever or has been a part of Lever, would know that the strict principles around everything. And so I was probably enjoying the benefit of that. And we had to start with something called job to be done. So we had to define, before we started any work, what was the job to be done, which started with defining what was the objective that we were doing this task for, which means you also had to start with the problem statement. So you had to really very clearly, very simply articulate the problem statement and then figure out what was the job to be done to be able to ensure that that problem statement came up with a good resolution. So I think for us, planning, um, focusing your ideas and thoughts on what you will do once you have decided on what the objective is, has been a kind of, it was in the gene. So it was kind of easy. The challenging thing was to get all the departments, like, you just don't do communication with the communication team, and most of the communication teams in organizations are very small. I mean, when I used to head communication for Airtel, I think that was the time I managed a team of 22 people and 8 agencies. So that was like huge. But otherwise, teams have been 3, 4, 5 member teams. And the thing was to get your teams from your marketing departments, your brand departments, your sales organization, or within HR to understand the same principles. They all understood the job to be done. But after that, what is it that we are going to do? That took a lot of effort. Also was getting the agency onboarded to be able to focus on the same thing. So I think the task is not just to create the principle or create what you want and how you should go about it, but also to take the whole set of people, your ecosystem along. So I think that's what is very important.
All right.
Yeah, totally agree. Just one example, I think that would be better to answer. Um, while we were trying to build a narrative for Amazon as a brand in India, one of the principles that Amazon follows is being input focused and not output. So that I resonated that back with the Barcelona principles because they talk about the same that they talk about outcomes, and I think there, and I had not done this before. Before I joined Amazon, it was a great learning for me and my team that inputs are controllable, outputs are not. And there are so many times we have to justify this to internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, that, hey, you do a certain action and you are bound to get X amount of coverage or drive X amount of sentimental score or qualitative kind of indexes, whatever you want to follow. But there are many times where you don't control those outputs. But if your inputs are absolutely strong, your output and outcomes will definitely go in the right direction. So I think that is one example or lesson or learning I can share, reflecting back from a brand or where I worked with, resonating it with the measurement index at Barcelona Principles.
But in the example that you took, did you link these inputs to business goals as well?
Absolutely. You cannot start without actually summarizing for yourself what is the business goal. And you start from there, and even for the business goal, you have to understand what is the input required for that business goal, and then you have to go back to understanding what is the input required for your comms campaign to achieve that business goal.
Can you share an example of what a goal like this would say?
So let's take another example. So automotive. So if the business goal is to launch a new brand and sell X amount of cars or vehicles in a certain year, that's a sales business goal, and drive the brand measurement or brand index to 2.0 to 3.0, whatever, that would be a business goal. And then we have to take that goal and see what can we do to drive, say, awareness, purchase consideration, where can we actually play a role? Where can PR play a role along with marketing or without marketing, along with other functions? Sometimes the comms goal can be just to raise awareness and build favorability for internal audiences. Sometimes we neglect that, and they are like captive audiences who are also your customers. So that can be another input goal for a PR kind of machinery.
Thank you. Neeraj, you wanted to share a story.
Yeah, I want to just add a bit of story because of the thing that you said that, when people are shared goals, they have to write objectives, they actually understand differently. So I want to give two examples. One is a large project that we do. We have about 100 trainers spread across 22 states in India. And the customer there is Hindustan Unilever. So that is where we do training and on-the-job training, as well as, audits, which is called surprise visits by them. So from that perspective, with these 100 trainers, if there is a brand change that comes in, which changes. Or every quarter, something or the other, different times, they will keep changing. When those changes come, that time we have to make sure that every single person has understood the objectives very, very clearly and can implement on the ground. Yeah, so and that process is something that we have really, really fine-tuned in terms of delivery, because we kind of do it in just 24 hours. That every single person across these 22 states, different languages, are able to understand and operate. So that's the one large project that I wanted to give an example for. And the second one is a small thing. So when we are doing it smallly, like a team or a project which is, training a set of people, but there, typically, tendency is that you don't really, really check with all three whether they have understood or not. So that we actually ran, and we made sure that not only those three, there was the audience, the students who are going to be the stakeholders as well, also understand that what is it that we are working on for them. So this is something that that first one, we really, really do hard.
All right, thank you. Another principle states that when you're measuring a campaign, you should use metrics, and these metrics should be a combination of quantitative metrics and qualitative metrics. Would you like to share any examples of were you able to combine the two? Were you able to use quantitative and qualitative metrics in the same campaign?
I can go first. So, look, if we go back to the basics, we know that your share of voice or number of coverage that comes in is really doesn't mean much if you don't measure the quality of coverage or quality of exposure, which is tonality or sentiment. So we were very clear across organizations, right from the days of Ford, measuring, first assessing what message should be crafted, how it should be crafted, whether it resonated back with the audience or not, doing a quick post and pre-audits to understand whether those messages worked or not. So I think for the EcoSport launch campaign of Ford in 2012, 2013, this was very important in terms of understanding sentiment score of people who were wanting to buy a B SUV. Small SUV was introduced by Ford with the EcoSport in India, and now every car is a SUV.
Yeah.
So even coining that term and then finding out whether it resonated back with consumers, sometimes you can take a step back and think that, hey, that's not a PR job. But you will not be able to craft a message if you don't understand the sentiment and then go back and work on it if it is not resonating well. So I think the EcoSport launch and the B SUV terminology was a great insight for us. Also, I think I just want to add, and probably Deepa can step in, I found that also in the principles here, the culture of learning versus reporting. I think that's a huge, important point which is not often addressed. We as communicators tend to feel that we need to report, and we always go ahead with that attitude or with that bent of mind that, hey, we are asked to report. I think we need to take a step back and figure out that what is the culture of learning we can adopt or adapt than just reporting.
So you mean using the results of the research to change the future programs?
Absolutely, and we have seen great results in it. Like I would not name the brand, but I was in the agency side then, and we went. It was an insurance company, and we went in there and we were trying to convince the marketing head and the CEO that the work that we have done has really worked, and it has given them better awareness about consumers wanting to adopt for bank assurance. But we had the data, but we did not have the insights. So you can say we were data rich, but insights poor, and that did not help us move forward. So that was a good example that how these things help to actually, data can help you draw insights.
Thank you, and I think EcoSport is a great example because EcoSport was a very successful launch.
Yep.
And happy to learn that you used data and you set the right metrics.
Absolutely.
So I have something to add to this, and it's a different category completely. A few years ago, I'm sure most of the people here will remember that there was a lot of controversial content that came out of an online influencer called Food Farmer attacking a particular brand, and it was to do with sugar and labeling, etc., etc. So I was with Unilever, and one of our products was actually in the same product bracket. So it was Bonvita, and we had Horlicks. And we were obviously very worried that because the entire category being attacked, what is going to do to our business proposition. Interesting thing about research was we went down and we did consumer work. Now, when I say we, I didn't do it, my team didn't do it. Obviously, there was a set of people who do it. The consumers did not recognize that as a debate. And the consumers, the only thing that they remembered about, a food category related controversy was Nestle and Maggie. And they did not, and it was all in the middle of all of that. So while our data point was telling us that the war is raging on Twitter and YouTube and media, etc., consumer data and insight just told us just the opposite. So that gave us the confidence to actually take forward certain outreach that we had planned, and we were in the process of withdrawing. So we said, okay, we will keep a soft touch. We won't do a mass outreach, but we'll do a soft touch and see if consumer pickup is good or not. And actually, it was quite successful.
Now, that's a great example of how qualitative research saved the day for you. In fact, a lot of PR professionals don't even think about qualitative research and just depend purely on quantitative research and share a voice and stuff.
Yeah, but you see, I think it's very important for us to understand that the work that we do is not just the column CC that is coming out of it, or the eyeballs that are getting attracted. I think we are doing much deeper and much more interesting work, and I think we need to understand that, and that's where we need to ask for these research. We need to be able to have that kind of conversations internally so that we can actually go forward and do the work that we should be doing.
And everybody's talking about AI today. Will you be able to share some examples of how, and if you have used AI for research and measurement of communication so far?
So I can just tell you my personal stuff. So when I used to again work with Unilever, we were using AI to write briefs, creative briefs, and we were very transparent about it. And these were creative briefs for large campaigns, global, going out to large companies globally. And there was, we were all very transparent about it. So we were actually doing prompt engineering in a very, I would say, pilot way to be able to get to that. I think for me personally, AI, I use it a lot for fact checking. Because we have, I think a lot of AI tools have now been launched. They are available. My favorite currently is Perplexity in WhatsApp. So every WhatsApp forward, I just put into it and I just ask Perplexity, or whichever. Because I feel that our profession, and especially currently, we are in the midst of so much of misinformation, and it's going to get worse from here. When we started our career, I started my career 32 years ago. I was about to say 28, then I realized I would be lying. 32 years ago. And I had 5 newspapers to worry about. And maybe 2 television channels. What you guys are looking at is completely different. So in the midst of that, if you, are we going to be the fact makers, fact checkers, or the fiction makers? That's the choice you have in your hand. And if AI helps you to get there, and I think all of you should just start doing it, because that helps you to actually sift the whole lot of conversation that's happening, which can be, can be harmful to your brand very easily. So, and then you can respond accordingly to that as well.
All right, thank you. The timer is showing time's up. Do we have time for a few questions? Okay. Deepa, Abhi, and Neeraj, please send your questions across to them on their social media channels or handles. So thank you so much for joining us for this session. Thank you.